Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our fifth episode of our Bracket Tips series. This one will be all about choosing your Sweet 16. So let's get into it. If you haven't watched the past episodes, make sure you go ahead and check those out before watching this one. They deal with a whole range of topics, and we really think you would enjoy them. So without further ado, let's move on. So, like I said, this video is all about picking your Sweet 16. So we're going to start with a historical seed breakdown over the past 10 years. We're going to break down the Sweet 16 teams over the past 10 years. We're going to come up with a general takeaway on which seeds to take into the Sweet 16. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to identify busts in the first round and then also how to identify your sleeper candidates to make the Sweet 16. These topics have already been gone into in a little more detail in past episodes with the Cinderella teams and first round upsets. And we'll even go into a little more detail in episode 6 of our series, which will be coming out tomorrow if you're watching this on the day that it's uploaded. So be sure to check those out. It'll give you a little more information, but we will be covering those topics a little bit today. So moving on into the historical makeup of the past Sweet 16s. I know this page has a lot of numbers on it, but bear with me. They're all very important. So each of those lists there, starting with 2010, moving all the way down to 2019, are a list of all Sweet 16 seeds, and any seed that is outside of the top four is highlighted in red. And this is because if you go with a chalk bracket, you'll end up with 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? You'll end up with those seeds in each region in the Sweet 16. So it's important to identify every team that isn't there, isn't part of that 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you look, there's significant evidence that every single year there are at least multiple teams that are not part of that 1, 2, 3, 4 seed that make it in. The most basic year, the most chalk year was actually the last tournament in 2019 when only two top four seeds made it. That was Oregon, who was a 12 seed, lost to Virginia in the Sweet 16, and then Auburn, who ended up making it to the Final Four. They were a 5 seed in the Sweet 16. So that's the sort of the breakdown there. You can see in 2010 there were 8 upset, we'll call them upset teams, right? Because they either had to pull an upset or some upset had to occur at some point for these teams to make it, whether or not it was that team who made the upset. So 8 teams, 6 teams, 5 teams, 5, 6, 7, 6, 4, 9, and 2. We'll talk about it on the next page. We'll average that out for you and break it down. And then there's the list of the seeds that made it. You had a lot of 5 seeds, a lot of 11 seeds, actually, a lot of 6 and 7, not so many 8, 9, or 12s, barely any 13s, and of course, Florida Gulf Coast, the only 15 seed to ever make it to a Sweet 16. So with that being said, we'll break it down on the next page for you and give you our recommendations for how to build a strong and historically accurate bracket prediction this year. So the general takeaways from that last page for seeding purposes. So the average number of non-1 to 4 seeds, or the upset teams that we were talking about, there are about 5.8. We'll round that for you. There's about 6 of them per year. So 10 teams in the Sweet 16 will be of the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds, but then 6 of them won't be. So when you're trying to pick your bracket, don't take all the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds, and typically don't just include 1 or 2 non-top 4 seeds. You're going to want to find roughly 6. We say anywhere between 4 and 8, right? Given that there's a standard deviation of 2, we'll say plus or minus 1 standard deviation from the mean. Anywhere from 4 to 8 non-1 to 4 seeds should make up your Sweet 16. So looking at the actual seeds, like the average number of seeds and stuff from that last page that we were on, our advice to you is to pick a 5 seed, and then either a 5 or a 6 seed, either a 6 or a 7 seed, a 10 or an 11 seed, an 11 seed, and then either an 11, 12, or none, right? So that should give you roughly 5. Okay, so 5, a little on the lower end there. We could see this year. We're not really sure how to interpret this year with it being all in Indianapolis. It could be more of a chalk year. It could be way more of an upset year. It doesn't, there isn't any particular evidence to suggest either way. My personal feeling, again, I'll let you know when things are my personal opinion versus something backed up by analytics. My personal take on it is that it should be a lot more chalk than usual, at least in the first couple rounds. Reason being that typically if you've ever been to, like I have, if you've ever been to a first round site and there's even a chance of an upset, you're in the second half and the 12 seed is up 5 points or something. The crowd, because it's a crowd that's there for not just that game, but the next game, and people who are there just from the city that it's being hosted in, they all rally around that low seed, no matter who they are. I mean, you don't even have to have a tie to that team to sit there and root for, Duke to lose or Kentucky, whoever it is, Kentucky, North Carolina, If they have a chance of going down, the entire crowd gets behind them, and that's probably not going to be there this year with everything being in Indy. There will be fans, so again, it's not going to be completely silent, but the atmosphere is going to be a lot different, and so the crowd isn't going to play as much of a role in supporting those underdog upsets. So, with that being said, like we said, we recommend taking 5. That's a pretty good number right in that range. Average of 5.8. We're going slightly under that, down to 5 teams making up your Sweet 16 that are not top 4 seeds. Again, we recommend a 5 seed, and then either a 5 or a 6 seed, a 6 or a 7, a 10 or an 11 seed, and then either an 11, 12, or none. We would not recommend 3 11 seeds. So you see there how we said take a 10 or an 11 seed, then an 11 seed, then an 11 or 12 or none. We wouldn't recommend you having 3 11 seeds. That's not what we're saying, but we definitely think you should have 1 11 seed, whoever it is, and then maybe even a second one, depending. So with that being said, let's move on to a little more discussion on this. Is how do you identify which top seeds are going to go down? Like which ones should you not take, and where should you pick your Cinderellas? So, the next episode of this series actually is going to be going into detail on this, is how to identify which top seeds are going to lose first, which ones are safer to pick to lose versus not safer to pick to lose. But in general, you're looking for a team in the higher seeds if you're going to choose against them. Don't pick one that has a top 10 or offense or defense. It's just not going to work. That means they're very elite at what they do, and the odds of them busting are much lower than a top 4 seed that, say, potentially has, let's just say, like a 18th ranked offense and 38th ranked defense. They can potentially lose to that 12 seed or what have you a lot easier than the number 3 offense in the nation, if that makes sense to you. Going a little deeper, look for a top team that has one of either their offense or defense ranked outside the top 50. If you can find a team that both is not in the top 10 in one of those categories and is outside of the top 50, that means that they're in the scheme of the tournament, in terms of the teams that are in the tournament. It means that they're not that good, right? That they're not as elite as those other teams that might have a top 10 offense and top 10 defense, or even a top 20 and a top 20. So you're going to want to look at for a team that falls outside of the top 50 and also not inside the top 10. That's the sort of range you're looking for there. You also want to look for a power conference team that's, your Power 6, if you will. You've got your Big 10, your Big East, your Big 12, Pac-12, SEC, and ACC. Look for one of those. Look for one of those teams that maybe had a slightly above 500 conference record, and maybe a lower strength of schedule than you would expect. So, for example, this year I know the Big 10 makes up pretty much every toughest schedule in the entire league. But look at just outside of the top 10 or the top 20 strength of schedules. Try to look at the conferences and their conference rankings. And like, for example, I know the Pac-12 this year, very weak conference. So if you look at a team there, like a USC or an Oregon this year, who might make the field, they might be one that you might pick against, if one of them ends up getting a top 4 seed. I don't think they will. But that might be where you take, if you like the 11 seed or the 12 seed that's matched up against them, that might be where you take them because of that lower strength of schedule. So that's just a little bit of a discussion on that. And like we see on the screen there, like we mentioned, try to find someone who has a strength of schedule outside the top 75. So that would mean that they haven't played the quality of competition that you might expect in March Madness. And if you have a hot Cinderella team or just a confident Cinderella team, that would be where you would look for that upset to occur. Moving on, how do you identify the sleepers? We actually have gone into detail already on this, on how to identify a Cinderella, how to identify a first-round upset, and how far to take your Cinderella. So go watch those videos. Like I said, this is episode 5 in a 7-episode series. So you can go ahead and watch the previous 5 videos and get a little more detail on that. And our parting note here is, remember, it's all about finding a specific matchup. So just because you really like a lower seed, look at who they're going up against, okay? Some people really like Loyola Chicago this year. They're probably going to be an 8 seed from what it looks like. And if they get seeded in the same region as Gonzaga, unfortunately, they probably aren't going to make it to the Sweet 16. But if they got seeded, let's say they made a 7 seed, they could pull the upset over the 2 seed. So you need to find the balance of the lower seed that you like, that you feel confident in, also matching up against a top 4 seed that you are less confident in. if that makes sense to, what I'm trying to get at there. Anyways, like I said, this is a 7-video series. We have 2 more videos coming out in the next 2 days, one coming up tomorrow and then one coming up the day after that, leading up to Selection Sunday. So thank you for watching. I have been Rob from Hoop Power Analytics. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop a like and a comment below the video. Let us know what else you're looking for from our content development team here at Hoop Power Analytics. Make sure you drop us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram. Those are linked in the description. Thank you for watching.